just in general, the whole idea of taking on something that's so iconic and well known by everybody and has this huge fan base, it's quite a daunting task. And also wanting to try to put my own stamp on it and take it further and push it further into the future and to what, the future could be and what I think it could be. That's all of that encompasses the challenges of the show. I think that it's just it's a great opportunity to do what I get to do. We've done some really amazing things on the show, and I'm really proud of the work that my team and I have been able to accomplish and been able to do. So I don't know if that answers your question exactly, but it's really interesting. One of the things we got to do last year was went to the Star Trek convention and met people in person and got to sort of talk about the work with fans, et cetera. And it was just really interesting because, they're so attached to the past and what it was. And so to try to move that forward into what we're trying to do and create new technologies and new things that can inspire has been a real challenge in itself as well. So it's very cool.
Well, I mean, speaking of that, I love the Discovery Starfleet uniforms because it's very distinct in its own way. Like I love the colors. It pops the navy, and it's very streamlined. But it still harkens back to the original costume. So what's the balance between adding a modern flair to it, your own spin, while honoring the original?
Well, I think predominantly the spin, I would say, comes from the producers because I started working with Brian Fuller, and actually Sudharat Lalab was the first costume designer that I worked with when we started, because I actually wasn't hired as the costume designer in the beginning. I came on to assist her and to help her out. And, the idea was, Brian really wanted to make a uniform that stood out on its own and something that was original for our show. And we first actually did try doing, the TOS colors, the 3 colors, and then he just didn't like that look at all and didn't want it. So we wanted to try something more interesting and more distinct for our own, to have our own statement. So that's where we developed our color. And one of the things that the Navy came from was actually the military and the Navy, which makes sense because navies are kind of like the explorers of our time now. And so that was where we started with. That's where the Navy came from, and then the idea of adding the copper and the metallic to it was sort of like the idea is that there are life monitoring systems that are added to it, so it's sort of a bio smart technology incorporated into the costume as well, which I think really is. It's part of what the future will be for sure, because smart technology is a really big focus that's coming out for already. It started, Adidas and a lot of sports companies are doing things like that as well.
What was your reaction at the end of season 1 when you found out that the Enterprise was being introduced?
I was kind of super daunted and excited at the same time. It's kind of, again, then we really had to dig into what these iconic costumes were and how they would fit into the story that we were already starting to tell. I think that what we ended up doing was really great because the collar, because we had this collar that was already a sort of asymmetrical collar, and it had the V in it. It kind of had a little bit of a nod back to the original series when you put the new colors in with it. So I think, the combination of the two things are really great, and it worked really well.
The TOS costumes, I feel like they were on the show there. It's like your version of them through the Discovery aesthetic of these really striking, vibrant colors. So was that what you were going for with
Exactly.
it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Did you test any other color schemes out for it?
No, not any. We originally, because we didn't know who our lead actor was going to be, who our Pike was going to be, we did do 2 golds that we had. We had like a little bit less of a brighter color, a little duller color, gold, and so we tested both of them on Anson when he was cast, and went with the brighter gold, which everybody loved, and he looks great in it. So I think that's the way that worked out. And then we did originally also try with our compression panels. We tried the metallics as well first, and it just didn't look very good. So we did the self color. Compression panels on the side. Those are the puff lines that sit on the side that we get printed here at By Design in LA.
So. How many of your costumes are custom made? And
I'm going to say we custom make about 90% of everything is made in-house. We do have a couple companies that we love, or I love in particular. There's a company that I use a lot called Gerli out of San Francisco that's really great, and I call that my Klingon store.
What do you get there?
I think Laurel's costume in episode 212, parts of it are from there. Like what we did, it was a bodysuit and a pair of pants, and we took it apart and made it into a dress that turned out really good, and then did this process that we call foiling, where we take a metallic foil and put on top of the leather, and reworked it that way, and it turned out really great. I don't know. I mean, I don't know who's all seen it, but it's Laurel's costume in episode 212, which is really great. And also Tyler's costume in episode 203 is that one as well. It's sort of, somebody called it last night a fetish look. So it's a bit of a leather harness piece that he wears.
There's a lot of leather on the show.
I have to say I'm a little partial to leather. I really love it. I think just because we're dealing with aliens and trying to create other species, the leather sort of works a little better than using fabrics. And then we can also add a really cool textures to it and just make it look more interesting than regular fabrics. So that's sort of like my go-to.
Leather,
usually.
yeah.
Yeah, it is. And I found some really great leathers from different places. You know, we sort of tend to shop like all over the world, literally. It's been really quite interesting and a lot of fun to find all these new companies and new ways of making things and doing things that you know, have come through as our costumes are being built and manufactured. So yeah.
Well, speaking of the Klingons, I love their updated look this season because it's we're literally seeing more of the Klingons' bodies because they're less armored and they're growing out their hair, and it just kind of matches with their story because it's kind of like a peaceful existence this season for them.
Yes, that's the idea. Yes.
Yeah. So that was your goal this season when you were designing for them.
Yeah, for me, you know, Laurel, this is her first time being introduced as the chancellor, so I really wanted something very regal and fabulous for her to wear in the beginning when we first see her that had a little bit of femininity to it and also still had the power that she has. So the cape piece that she wears in the beginning was something that also comes from my Klingon store. They had a little capelet that they had made, but we took it and made it into a long gown, and we found this really cool leather from Spain called volcanic leather that we put on this wire frame and made it up into this amazing, I don't know, I think it's really cool and amazing, but it didn't actually get on camera very much, which often happens with costumes
don't you
for
hate
us.
that?
Yes, not the greatest thing, but we're going to take some good pictures of it and
just put it on Instagram.
Yeah,
it's fine.
exactly. So that'll be the plan. But it was, I guess I could say it was my idea to show some of her body the way we did and the cleavage on her. We had the prosthetic that they had made in, I think it was episode 109 of the first season, and we took that and just reworked the costume over it and got this really cool piece of jewelry that I had made by a company I think they're in France, in Paris actually, and with crystals and some metal tips on it that was really good, really cool, and it just had a really great aesthetic to it that felt Klingon-ish or esque-like, and so that was that's what we're always going for, and it's always it's interesting trying to find different things that relate to these different species that we're working with. So that's it's a challenge and it's also very interesting. So, yeah.
Well, this season we also met Spock.
Yes.
Who looked very different when we first met him, but then in the last minute of the season, he shaves his beard and he puts on the classic blue suit.
Yeah.
So how did you go about designing for him?
Well, as most often the case is, it's scripted. The way what we're working with is always based on a story that comes from the scripts. And the idea was that he was going through a PTSD, I think is what you call it, yes. And so he was hadn't been looking after himself. He was really disheveled and grew the beard and the hair was shaggy and all of that sort of thing. So even the outfit I had, I kind of wanted it to feel like he was almost wearing like jeans and a t-shirt kind of feel. So the leather that we used was this sort of, it was a sort of like a nubuck suede leather that I was able to manipulate really nicely, and I think it turned out really cool. And also we added wire to the collar that we could mush down and sort of create sort of just a not as well put together Vulcan as they usually are. So it was nice to play in that with that and just work with him. And Ethan's just such a really great actor as well and really willing to try many different things. So that was really cool as well.
And we also had Section 31.
Yes.
I love their outfits because it's very simple, basic black, but it's so badass, and it looks futuristic, but it also feels dangerous. So, what were your inspirations for their look?
Well, the thing about Section 31, which is really great for me, was they told me that they would be wearing all black, which, of course, since I'm wearing all black, you can see that's one of my favorite colors as well. So being able to design costumes based on that was really cool. And also working with Michelle, who is fearless as well and really amazing to work with and willing to try anything. We got to do a lot of really cool things. And again, you can see I was using a lot of leather there as well, which it's just smoother and more slick and more interesting. Did some really cool work with Una Burke, who does, there's one piece of the harness piece that Michelle wore that we used the capelet that they had and then just added a belt that went with it. And just, it was, I'm trying to think of what the aesthetic was that we were driving for with them. I think it's a cleaner, it's sort of like Starfleet, but a little darker, you know what I mean? That's the idea with it. So just trying to, and also because of the the character Leland and his sort of slightly, not wanting to give away his nature off the beginning, and then have it come out later, which was also something that was interesting and cool to do. But yeah, it was just a really cool and interesting aesthetic to play with and work on.
In the finale, we see the Red Angel time suit. Burnham wears it. So, and I know you posted on Instagram that took 9 months to make. So break it down. What happened? What did that entail?
Well, originally, I saw the movie Ghost in a Shell, and I was fascinated by the suit that Scarlett Johansson wears in that movie. And that was originally the inspiration for it, and I took it to the builders that we worked with, several different people that we talked to about trying to make something like that. And they gave us prices that, of course, we couldn't handle in our budgets. So we came up with a different idea of how we could figure out how to make it work within what we could do. So it was a combination of, the base of it is a printed, a 3-layer print that we did with Karen Wynn, and then built a bodysuit that fit both Sonequa and also Sonia, because they're, mother and daughter, Red Angels, basically, and then worked with a local company to develop all the plates that we put on top. So they're all different layers of Task 13, and leather and neoprene. So that just depending on the movement and what needed to move and what didn't move, they were all placed on the body in different places. And we sort of did this sort of really cool plate system that I think worked really well. And
especially with the effects once it goes on her and stuff.
Yeah, and the red light. Because originally when they told us about this particular character, the idea was that she was 1,000 years in the future, and then when the story developed, it ended up being Burnham's mother in the past. So we had to tweak the costume a little bit, and that was, and then also Burnham ends up wearing it as well at the end. So hers was a little different, in the props master, who actually we worked really closely with building these spacesuits with. He was the one who came up with the idea of making Burnham's navy blue, so it was more Starfleet, which was a really, it was great, and I think it really gave them their own identities separately, so that was really cool as well. But yeah, it was an amazing experience, and I know, like, in general, for us, we were just really proud of the way it turned out, because it was such a great, it was such a great feat for us, to be able to pull that off ourselves. And with this, we worked with a company in Toronto called Classens, who were really great builders as well. So it was cool.
So what can you tease us about season 3? If anyone's seen the ending of season 2, then.
Well, I think everybody knows that we're going into the future.
Yes.
So that's basically all I'm allowed to say.
Okay. Where you are in the pre-production process?
We are shooting in 4 weeks. Ooh, less than 4 weeks. Okay, I know, very scary.
Well, there's a Section 31 spinoff, so are you going to be part of that?
Maybe. I actually am hoping to, yeah. It would be really great to work with Michelle on that level. I think it would be cool. And it'll be a
More all black.
Yeah,
suits.
of course.